under the peaceful forests of Poland, buried under decades of silence and earth, lay a secret. Our understanding of the last days of World War II should be rewritten. This is the story of a discovery. Archaeologists, historians, and the whole of the world was shocked. In the spring of 2015, two Scatzinger, Andreas Richter and Piotr Koper, an extraordinary claim set up. With ground radar near the city whale break in southwestern Poland, they discovered something massive underground, a network of tunnels and chambers that do not should exist. The location was no coincidence. This region was part of Hitler's ambitious Project Giant, a huge underground complex. Between 1943 and 1945, it was built by thousands of forced laborers. But this particular bunker never has been documented. He has been with them for over 70 years. History has been lost. The discovery attracted international attention. The Polish authorities were initially skeptical, but the radar images were undeniable. Something substantial lay beneath the earth. It had the characteristics of Nazi war construction. After months of legal proceedings, security assessments, and historical review, received excavation teams finally authorization to investigation. When the excavation teams in early 2016 finally broke through the entrance, they found a steel door, but rusted intact, which had been sealed since the end of the war. The door itself was a marvel of engineering, weighed several tons, and was so designed that she was impenetrable from the outside. There was a time capsule from one of the darkest chapters of history. The first thing that impressed the researchers was the size. Concrete walls, 3 meters thick, designed to withstand direct bombings. The bunker stretched over 150 meters under the earth, with several chambers. The central corridor branched off. The air inside was stale, but breathably preserved the hermetic ceiling, which had protected the structure for decades. The temperature was constant, cool and humid, which is actually had contributed. Many of the artifacts are preserved inside. As they went deeper, revealed their flashlights, spooky remnants of the Nazi regime. The command center still had their maps hanging on the walls that strategic locations throughout Eastern Europe showed, with marks and notes, who pointed out, until the end, it will be it was an operations center, a communication system, primitive by today's standards, but highly modern for its time. Stand still. Telephones with their listeners not yet hung up, encryption devices, known as Enigma variants, and a sophisticated ventilation system that during the war the air had been breathing for long periods. The residential quarters showed a lively picture of life under the earth. Bunk beds lined the walls, rusted but recognizable, with personal objects in obvious haste were left behind. A leather boot stood upright in the corner. A pair of glasses was on a small desk, and perhaps most spooky, a chess game stood in the middle of the game frozen. It was as if the players had just disappeared. These were not just ordinary soldiers. Evidence indicated that high-ranking officers used this room had inhabited. Badges, uniform fragments, and personal correspondence medals on ranks of major and listen. But the storerooms revealed the most shocking discoveries. Box after box of documents, some damaged by moisture, others remarkably well preserved in sealed metal containers. These were no ordinary military acts. They contained detailed plans, scientific reports, and correspondence, which historians believed they were in the last days of the war been destroyed. Among the documents were blueprints for advanced weapons, some projects which have never been completed, others which technology of their time was far ahead. There were V-2 rocket schemes with modifications which have never been implemented, including designs for multi-stage rockets. Those of other nations were only developed in the 1950s. Plans for jet aircraft showed aero wing configurations and jet engine improvements. In other countries, only a decade would appear later. Some documents detailed earlier research on this. what we know today as stealth technology and guided missile systems would detect. Perhaps most disturbing were the medical records, experiments on prisoners, with clinical distance and terrifying detail recorded. These documents provided evidence of war crimes only whispered about had been, now black on white confirmed. Names, data, procedures that each principle of human dignity and medical ethics injured. Historians and legal experts have recognized immediately the meaning. These records confirmed statements from the Nuremberg trials and delivered new evidence of systematic atrocities. Another chamber contained something completely unexpected: works of art, painting rolled in protective cylinder, in cloth-wrapped sculptures, religious artifacts from all over Europe. This was part of the systematic looting. Cultural treasures of the Nazis, a program which they called Special Order Lens, and it was destined for Hitler's planned Führer Museum embroidery. Many pieces were considered lost forever, has been listed. It has been unknown since 1945. There were Renaissance paintings, Italian churches, Jewish religious manuscripts from Polish synagogues, and French Impressionist works, stolen from private collections. Families who inherited their heritage generations ago was stolen. These objects will finally get back. Personal diaries in officers' quarters were found, revealed the psychological state of the bunker residents in the last days of the war. As the Allied forces of all the sides drew closer, these men knew that the war was lost. Some entries spoke of escape plans to South America from already prepared false identities, bank accounts in neutral Switzerland. Others revealed despair, fear, and, in some cases, despite bitter end, a diary which belonged to a colonel whose name later identified, documented the systematic destruction of evidence. He wrote about orders, documents burning to collapse the tunnel, to close every trace of it, delete. What happens in these underground facilities had happened, but they failed through incompetence, lack of time, or perhaps secret satisfied a conscience. Not everything was destroyed. The bunker was sealed, but his secrets remained intact and waited for 70 years to be discovered. The discovery of this bunker, immediate impact. He provided historians with primary source documents that identify gaps in the field of historical record. War crimes investigators get new evidence of cases. They have been cold for decades. Intelligence services from several countries sent representatives to the military technology documents investigate how close Nazi Germany have been there to develop weapons that will determine the outcome of war could have changed. Today, parts of the bunker are a memorial and museum. Visitors can walk through the same corridors. The Nazi officers once went, see the cards you studied, the touch-cold concrete walls that these experienced dark days. The artifacts were cataloged, which documents digitized and researchers made available worldwide. But perhaps the most important lesson is a memory of this discovery, a reminder that history must not be forgotten. This is evidence of the darkest moments of the mankind is preserved, must be studied and understood. Only by knowing the full truth of the past, we can hope to prevent that such horrors will never again done. The secret Nazi bunker in Poland was more just a historical curiosity. It was a window into the last desperate days of a regime that millions have suffered unimaginable suffering. What was found inside shocked the world, but it also informed and reminded us of the precious fragility of peace and human dignity.